Morning broke over the city of Susa. The air was cool and still after a night of turmoil. Word had spread quickly. Haman, the powerful official who had plotted against the Jews, was gone. His pride had led to his downfall, and now the city whispered of the queen's courage and of God's mysterious justice. But though Haman was gone, his evil plans still remained. The decree he had written in the king's name, the one that called for the destruction of all the Jews in the empire, was still in place. Queen Esther knew the danger wasn't over yet. When Esther entered the throne room again, she fell at the king's feet, tears shining in her eyes. "Please, my lord," she said, her voice trembling, "let my life and the lives of my people be spared. Haman's plan still remains, and it will destroy us all." King Xerxes looked down at his beloved queen. The memory of Haman's treachery was still fresh in his mind. He extended his golden scepter to Esther once more and said gently, "Rise, my queen. What is your request?" "It shall be granted to you." Esther took a deep breath. "If it pleases the king," she said, "let a new decree be written to cancel the one Haman made, the decree that calls for my people to be destroyed. For how can I bear to see the calamity that will fall upon them?" The king turned to Mordecai, who now stood beside Esther, dressed in royal robes and wearing the king's own signet ring, the very ring that had once been Haman's. "Write another decree," the king said, "in the name of the king, as you see fit. Seal it with my ring. What has been sealed with the king's signet cannot be revoked, but a new decree can overcome it." Mordecai immediately set to work. Scribes were called, and the king's secretaries gathered from every province of the empire, from India to Kush, to record the new decree in every language and script. The message was clear. The king grants the Jews in every city the right to defend themselves. They may protect their families, their homes, and their lives against anyone who would attack them. When the decree was finished, royal couriers mounted on swift horses rode out across the empire. The same horses once used to deliver Haman's message of death now carried a message of life and deliverance. As they galloped through city gates and across dusty roads, the good news spread like a rising dawn. In the city of Susa, the people gathered to hear the new decree read aloud. Joy broke out among the Jews. Tears of fear turned to shouts of praise. Children laughed and danced in the streets. Mothers lifted their hands in thanksgiving. Fathers embraced one another with relief. For the first time in many months, hope filled the air. Mordecai left the palace wearing a royal robe of blue and white, a large golden crown upon his head, and a purple cloak of fine linen. The people cheered as he passed. "God has turned our mourning into dancing," they cried. Even many of the Persians began to respect the Jews and honor their God, seeing how powerfully he had protected his people. When the day came that Haman's decree was to be carried out, the Jews stood together, ready but unafraid. Across the empire, enemies who had planned to harm them were stopped. The Jews defended themselves and prevailed. What was meant for their destruction became their victory. And through it all, they remembered the courage of Queen Esther, how she risked everything to save her people. After the victory, Mordecai wrote letters to all the provinces, calling for a celebration. "This will be a time to remember," he declared, "a time when God turned our sorrow into joy and our mourning into celebration." He called the feast Purim, named after the pur, or lot, that Haman had cast to choose the day of their destruction. But now that day had become a day of life, laughter, and thanksgiving. Every year, the Jewish people would gather to remember how God had saved them, how he worked through Esther's courage and Mordecai's faith to protect his people. There would be feasting and rejoicing, gifts shared with friends, and offerings given to the poor, so that no one would be left out of the joy. In the days that followed, peace settled once again over the Persian Empire. Esther continued to serve as queen with grace and wisdom. Mordecai became the king's highest official, second only to the throne. Together they ruled with kindness and justice, ensuring that every person, Jew and Persian alike, could live in safety. And throughout the land, people spoke of Esther's bravery. Children grew up hearing her story, how one woman's faith changed the destiny of an entire nation, how she chose to stand when it would have been easier to stay silent, how she trusted that God had placed her in the palace for such a time as this. Now, close your eyes, little one. Let your heart rest in the same peace that filled Esther's kingdom when all was made right. Know that God watches over you, just as he watched over his people. He is your protector, your peace, and your joy. Sleep softly in his love tonight. Good night, child of God. You are safe, and you are deeply loved.